What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And guess what? You already know who it is. It is me, your guy, the Young Brother of Soul. Okay, yeah, as you can see, I have my hometown team. Well, hometown hockey team, the Philadelphia Flyers, shirt on. As you can see, you already know they are in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And not only that, they are playing our arch rival, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who I definitely can't stand. But we're going to talk about them a little later, because as of right now, the Flyers do lead the series, don't get me wrong, but like I said, we'll talk about them another time. But it is also, of course, the NBA playoffs. As you can see, my hometown basketball team, the Philadelphia 76ers, are in the playoffs as they play our arch rival, the Boston Celtics, who I definitely cannot stand. Yeah, I do not like the Boston Celtics. No. So anyway, now, as y'all can see, yes, like I said earlier, I do have a hockey shirt on, but I'm going to do something a little different. Yeah, I'm going to do something a little different. On today's episode, since we're talking about the NBA playoffs, what I'm going to be talking about is the greatest NBA teams that never won a championship. Now, as you can see, yes, there has definitely been a lot of great NBA teams that done well in the regular season, of course. Now, we already know how that goes. Now, some are the best in the conference, either the Eastern or the Western Conference, and of course, they're first in their division. But for some reason, they also have a tremendous all-star team, and they have a phenomenal record from the regular season. And not only that, some of these teams, they either got knocked out in the first round, the second round, the conference finals, and of course, some of these teams lost the NBA Finals. Now, yeah, some of these teams should have won the championship, but for some odd reason, they always come up short. Don't know why, but it always happens. Yeah. Starting off on our list with the greatest NBA I'm sorry, I'm just a little, well, y'all get what I'm saying. Starting off on the list with the greatest NBA team to never win a championship. Now, this team definitely was a phenomenal team during that year. And that team is, ladies and gentlemen, the 1993 Phoenix Suns. Now, this team, ladies and gentlemen, definitely was a phenomenal, great team in the NBA during that time. They had a 62-20 record regular season. And not only that, they were first in the Western Conference. Not only that, they also had players like Kevin Johnson and all-star player Charles Barkley. Now, believe it or not, this team was so tremendous. They went through the playoffs and played their behinds off. And not only that they played their behinds off, as I should say, they would go on and play in the 1993 NBA Finals. That's how good this team was. Like I said, they were first in the Western Conference, and of course, they were first in their division. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they will go on and lose the NBA Finals to Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Now, that Chicago Bulls was the team that had their first three-peat. Of course, we already know that's Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and them that won the championship 3 years in a row. Now, yeah, for some reason, you already know the Phoenix Suns definitely was not going to beat the Chicago Bulls during that time. Michael Jordan definitely was in his prime, Scottie Pippen and them. But, yeah, like I said, the Suns, they were phenomenal that year. They were first in the league, well, in the Western Conference, and they were first in a division, and they went through the playoffs like it wasn't nothing. Of course, they had the great Charles Barkley, like I said, but they were going and lose the 1993 NBA Finals to the Chicago Bulls. Yeah. Tough loss. Another great NBA team to never win a championship, and that team is the 1975 Washington Bullets. Okay, now we already know that the Washington Bullets are now the Washington Wizards. Okay, they switched their name because of gun violence that was going on in DC. Well, during that time, they were the Washington Bullets. Now, this team definitely was a phenomenal team. They had a 60-22 record during the regular season. They were second in the Eastern Conference. They will go on and dominate in the playoffs. And believe it or not, this team actually made it to the 1975 NBA Finals. Well, when they got to the finals, it was definitely a different story. They got swept by the Golden State Warriors 4-0. I mean, that Washington Bullets team was phenomenal. I mean, they had tremendous all-star teams. Forgot the players' names, though. When you get a chance, leave a comment, let me know what those players were, and we'll go from there. But yeah, the 1975 Washington Bullets definitely were a great team to never win a championship. Yeah. But they did go on and win the 1978 finals, but that was their only, well, no, that's not their only championship. We'll talk about that another time. Okay. Another great team to never win the NBA championship. And that team is, ladies and gentlemen, the 2002 Sacramento Kings. Now, this team, ladies and gentlemen, was a phenomenal team. When I mean phenomenal, I mean they were great. And not only that they were great, they had a 61-21 regular season record. And not only that, they were first in the Western Conference. They did their thing. And not only that they did their thing, they had players like Chris Webber, Mike Bigby, Doug Christie. That team, ladies and gentlemen, was supposed to win the NBA championship. They would go on and play in the NBA playoffs, and they actually made it to the Western Conference Finals. But ladies and gentlemen, the team that they played in the Western Conference Finals was the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, we already know about the Los Angeles Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, Derek Fisher, and Rick Fox and them. They actually had back-to-back championships. And, of course, the Lakers will go on and win the 2002 NBA Finals, making their three-peat. But in that Western Conference Finals, Game 6, there was a lot of controversial moments going on in that game. It seems like the ref was favoring the Lakers. They kept giving all the fouls for the Lakers, foul shots, 27 compared to 8 or 9 for the Sacramento Kings. Everybody talked about that game, how controversial it was. And then, of course, the Lakers tied the series and they would go on and win Game 7. Like I said, they won the 2002 NBA Finals. But if there wasn't so much controversial moments going on in that game, I believe that the 2002 Sacramento Kings were definitely going to win the finals that year. But they didn't. They lost to the LA Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. So, yeah, that's real tough and very controversial moments. Another great team to never win an NBA championship. And this team is, ladies and gentlemen, the 1994 Utah Jazz. Now, before we go on with the Utah Jazz, yes, the Utah Jazz actually made it to the NBA Finals in 1997 and 1998. Well, we already know what happened. We already know what happened to those teams. Well, the 1994 Utah Jazz were actually pretty good. Not only that they were pretty good, they had a 53-29 record. They were fifth in the West, but they also had a tremendous duo between John Stockton and Karl Malone. Now, this team was so good that they actually made it to the Western Conference Finals. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the furthest that they would go, and that was the Western Conference Finals, as they would lose to the Houston Rockets, to Hakeem Olajuwon, as that team will go on and win the NBA championship in 1994. But yeah, that Utah Jazz team in 1994 was pretty good, man. Like I said, they had John Stockton and Karl Malone. Oh, man. Not only that, they had other tremendous players. But can you imagine if they would have went on and played in the NBA Finals? They probably would have faced the New York Knicks. It probably would have been a different story. But yeah, they didn't make it to the finals. And of course, they lost the Western Conference Finals to the eventual NBA champions, Houston Rockets. Yeah, so yeah. Tough love. Another great team to never win an NBA championship is, ladies and gentlemen, the 1969 LA Lakers. Now, before I go on with this list, we already know what goes on with the Lakers in the finals in the 1960s. Of course, they would run into the 1960 dynasty of the Boston Celtics. And not only that, of course, the year before that, they were faced against the Lakers in the NBA Finals. Lakers. They were faced against the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. Of course, Boston would win. But in this team of the LA Lakers of 1969, they had a 53 and... They had a 55-27 record during the regular season. I'm sorry. And of course, they were first in the Western Conference. But, well, before I go on there, they actually had players like the great Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and they even had Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah, they had Wilt Chamberlain. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we already know what happened to the LA Lakers. They would go on and play the Boston Celtics in the NBA championship again. And they would go on and lose to the Boston Celtics again. I mean, like I said in the episode before, or we already know this, the Lakers and the Celtics were always in the final. I mean, yeah. But yeah, that Lakers team was actually pretty good. But like I said, they couldn't do it against the Lakers. Celtics. Why do I keep saying? You get what I'm saying. They went to the 1969 finals and lost to the Boston Celtics. Yeah. Jerry West. I mean, eventually they did win the championship. That was a few years later. But you know how many chances that the Lakers had, but they couldn't beat the great Boston Celtics dynasty. Yeah, of the 1960s. Another great team to never win an NBA championship, and that team is to 2000 Portland Trailblazers. Now, this team actually had a 59-23 regular season record. They were third in the Western Conference, but they also had players like Scottie Pippen and Rasheed Wallace. That team was pretty good. Pretty good. Well, they would go on and play in the Western Conference Finals, but eventually they would lose to the LA Lakers, Kobe and Shaq, and of course that team would go on and win the NBA Finals in the year of 2000. I mean, that Portland Trailblazers team was phenomenal. Like, yeah, they would go on and lose the Western Conference Finals to the LA Lakers. I don't know what it is. It's like Every time you turn around, it's like either teams lose to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals or they lose them in the finals. Well, yeah. It's always the Lakers, right? It's always the Lakers. Boy. Another great team to never win an NBA championship. And that team is the 2015 Los Angeles Clippers. Now, I know before I go on with this, you already know the Clippers are definitely one of the most, well, they're the number one cursed teams in the NBA. Yeah, they're cursed. Yeah, like I said it in another episode of The Young Brother of Soul. But anyway, that LA Clippers team had a 56-26 regular season record. They were third in the Western Conference, but they had players like Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and Deion Jordan. Well, with a roster like that, you would think that they would finally win a championship. Well, unfortunately, they didn't. And not only that, they would make it to the playoffs, but they would lose to they lost to conference semifinals. So, yeah. Oh, boy. They actually lost to the Rockets in the Western Conference semifinals. So, yeah, that was actually a stacked, pretty LA Clippers team. But they didn't win. So, yeah. Moving on. Another great NBA team to never win a championship, ladies and gentlemen, and that team is the 2007 Phoenix Suns. Now, this definitely was a phenomenal team. This Phoenix Suns 2007 had a 61-21 regular season record. They were second in the Western Conference. They had players like Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, which was a great duo. They made it to the playoffs, but they would go on and lose to the eventual NBA champions, San Antonio Spurs, in the Western Conference semifinals. I mean, the Spurs are the Spurs. They definitely were a dynasty dominant, with that team. But the Phoenix Suns, I mean, if they didn't have to face the Spurs, do you think they would have won the championship that year? Don't know. But yeah, like I said, they ran into the Spurs, and that's another team that's cursed in the NBA, the Phoenix Suns. But yeah, that 2007 Phoenix Suns were pretty good. Excuse me. Pretty good. Another great NBA team to never win a championship. And this team, ladies and gentlemen, the 1994 New York Knicks. Now, this team, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, actually had a 57-25 regular season record. They were second in the Eastern Conference. And not only that, they also had Patrick Ewing, Doc Rivers, John Starks. Definitely was a all-star team. And believe it or not, they actually made it to the NBA Finals that year in 1994. Well, not only that they made it, they were going to lose the NBA championship to Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets. They lost in 7 games. I mean, that team definitely was stacked, but the Houston Rockets, of course, were way too much for the New York Knicks during that year. I mean, well, yeah, like I said, the Houston Rockets, they definitely were way too much for the New York Knicks of the 1994 NBA Finals. Yeah. Another great team to never win an NBA championship, and that team is, ladies and gentlemen, the 2021 Los Angeles Clippers. Okay, we're talking about the Clippers again. Lord have mercy. Now, this Clippers team actually had a 47-25 regular season record. They were fourth in the Western Conference, and believe it or not, they actually had a stacked roster. They had Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Deion Jordan. That team definitely was stacked. They had a phenomenal all-star team, but they made it to the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, they did, but they were going and lose the Western Conference Finals to the Phoenix Suns. Now, that is the only time that the LA Clippers made it to the Western Conference Finals. And yeah, they didn't make it to the final. Yeah, the Clippers, oh Lord, oh my God. You know how many stacked rosters they had in order for them to win a championship, but for some reason they cannot win it all. I don't know what it is. They cannot win it all. But yeah, the 2021 LA Clippers, oh boy, man. Yeah. Another great team to never win another, well, I shouldn't say another great NBA team that did not win a championship. And that team is also the 2021 Brooklyn Nets. Now, that team, ladies and gentlemen, definitely had a roster stacked team. I mean, they had a 48-24 regular season record. They were second in the Eastern Conference. And not only that, that roster definitely was stacked because they had Kevin Durant, they had Kyrie Irving, and they had James Harden. Now, that definitely was a phenomenal team to win a championship. Well, they didn't. And not only that they didn't, they would eventually lose to the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference semifinals, who will go on and win the NBA Finals that year. Now, that team of the Brooklyn Nets definitely was stacked, and everybody talked about how they feel as though that the Brooklyn Nets of 2021 was going to win the championship. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we already know what happened. They didn't win it, so yeah, the Brooklyn Nets. Oh boy. Oh boy. You think it'd be a possibility that the Brooklyn Nets will move back to New Jersey? I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't think they're gonna go for it. But then again, you never know. But yeah, the 2021 Brooklyn Nets. Oh boy. Another great team that did not win the NBA championship, ladies and gentlemen. And this team is the 2012 Chicago Bulls. Now, this team, ladies and gentlemen, was a phenomenal team. And not only that they were a phenomenal team, they had a 50-16 regular season record. They were first in the Eastern Conference. And not only that, they had players like Derrick Rose, who was balling that year. Balling. Well, unfortunately, Derrick Rose will suffer a torn ACL against my hometown basketball team, the Philadelphia 76ers, who definitely won that series. But I believe if Derrick Rose would have never got hurt during that playoff game against the Sixers, the Bulls was going to beat the Sixers. And not only that, the Bulls probably could have beat the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, who will go on and win. We'll talk about that another time. But they actually did win the finals. But yeah, that 2012 Chicago Bulls, man. Like I said, can you imagine if Derrick Rose would have never got hurt? And they also had Jimmy Butler on there. Oh yeah, they definitely would have won the championship, but they didn't because Derrick Rose got hurt. So yeah, Derrick Rose was a phenomenal basketball player. Definitely was. He should have won a couple championships, but torn his ACL. Another great team to never win a championship, and that championship is, that team, as I should say, is the 1968 Philadelphia 76ers. Oh boy. Now, the year before that, the Sixers actually won, their first championship in Philadelphia, but their second NBA final. Yeah, y'all get what I'm saying. They were the Syracuse Nationals, but they would win the NBA championship as they would snap the Boston Celtics run to the finals in the year of 1967. Well, the 1968 Philadelphia 76ers were a phenomenal team. They had a 62-20 regular season record. They were first in the Eastern Conference, and they also had like Hall Greer, if I'm not mistaken, if that's his name. And we also had the great Wilt Chamberlain. Well, they were going in the playoffs and do what they had to do until they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And who did they play against in the Eastern Conference Finals? They played against the Boston Celtics in a 4-3 series. And of course, the Celtics were going to win the championship. But yeah, that definitely, the Sixers definitely should have beat the Celtics. And I believe if they would have beat the Celtics that year, they probably would have repeated. But yeah, they didn't. So yeah, boy. Anyway, another great team to never win a championship is the 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, this team, ladies and gentlemen, had a 47-19 regular season record. And not only that, the NBA actually had the lockout that year, so games were pretty short. Same thing with the 2012 Chicago Bulls. Well, that team, ladies and gentlemen, they had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. I mean, that team was phenomenal. That was their big three. They were actually going and playing in the 2012 NBA Finals. Well, we already know what happened in that NBA Finals, as LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh were going and defeat the OKC Thunder 4-1 in the NBA Finals. I mean, that team that OKC they had quite a few times to win a championship, but for some reason, the teams just fell apart and they all left the Thunder, and the only person that won a championship out of that three was Kevin Durant. They did it twice with the Golden State Warriors. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before I go on with the last team last great team of the NBA that didn't win a championship, before I go on with that, I'm going to need everybody to do me a favor. Make sure y'all hit that, as I should say, make sure y'all should subscribe, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that notification button. And make sure y'all tune in for some more episodes of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show, because there will be more coming pretty soon. Just make sure y'all tune in. Yes. All right, y'all. Y'all already know who this team is. The number one greatest NBA team to never win a championship is the 2016 Golden State Warriors. Now, this team, ladies and gentlemen, actually broke the record for the best team. Well, the 1996 Chicago Bulls had the best record to this day in the NBA Finals. They were 72-10. And of course, they would win a championship that year. That is until the 2016 Golden State Warriors broke that record. Finally broke the record. They were 73-9. And not only that they were 73-9, they had Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, as they would go back to the NBA Finals. The year before that, they won the NBA Finals as they defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers. And in 2016, they would face off against the Cleveland Cavaliers again. The Warriors were up 3-1. 3-1. And what happened, ladies and gentlemen? The Cavaliers forced a Game 7, and they won Game 7. And the Cleveland Cavaliers finally won. LeBron finally brought a title to Cleveland. Yeah, that 2016 Warriors definitely should have won a championship that year. They were the best team in that year. And not only that, that was the year that the late, great Kobe Bryant had retired too. Yeah, he retired out pretty good, though. We miss you, Kobe. But anyway, that Golden State Warriors team definitely, like I said, should have won the championship. But they didn't. They lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers 4 games to 3. Actually, they had a 3-1 lead in the series. But the Golden State Warriors would beat the Cavaliers in the 2017 and 2018 NBA Finals. Yeah. In 2017, they won 4-1. In 2018, they swept them 4-0. So yeah, but other than that, yeah, that 2016 Golden State Warriors definitely should have won a championship that year, but they didn't. They had a 3-1 series lead, and Cavaliers forced the Game 7 and won Game 7. Yeah, I will never forget that game. Well, forget that year, that championship year. Yeah. So that, ladies and gentlemen, are your great NBA teams to never win an NBA championship. Like I said, some of them had great records. Some of them won the championship before that. And, of course, some of them had great leads in the series. And then, well, y'all get what I'm saying. Y'all definitely get what I'm saying. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of this episode for the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And make sure y'all tune in for some new episodes. And like I said, make sure y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that notification button. And there will be some more episodes of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. All right, let me stop, y'all. But yeah, like I said, these definitely were your greatest NBA teams to never win a championship. Yeah. And I also want to say thank you for the love and support. And like I said, make sure y'all just tune in for some new episodes of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. Thank you, and have a good one.